a big asset for you. Once the business is fully formed, an incorporator may stay on and take a role on as a director. All right, directors is something we're going to talk about a little bit later, but I need to at least introduce them now. All right. Again, a director can be anybody, and you don't have to have directors named at the outset when you're putting your articles of incorporation together. As we'll talk about later, the board of directors has all the management power in a corporation. They're the ones who run the company. They're the ones who make the decisions on what direction the company should be going in and what they should be doing, and all the important stuff that needs to be decided is done by a board of directors. We'll talk about some exceptions to that, but for the most part, that's how I want you to think of them right now. So think of yourself in the position of wanting to start a corporation. You may not be ready to name a board of directors, someone to whom you're ready to have possess this management power. So it might be a good idea to hire incorporators who, because all you really want to do at that point is get through formation quickly, painlessly, without spending a ton of money, and do it correctly. Do it once, do it right, do it quick. And so that can be the benefit of having incorporators. However, sometimes, especially smaller companies, you know who the directors are going to be, because the roles of the people who are invested personally, and maybe financially, and definitely with some blood, sweat, and tears. If you're ready to start a business, you don't want to hand over power to somebody else. So you're going to be a director, and you may already know, all right, us three are going to be the directors of this company. So there's no point in having someone else come on board unless you're really uncertain about the formation process. And to be honest, it's not all that complicated. So you can have directors right off the bat, but you don't have to. If you do, then you should name them, and name them as directors in your articles of incorporation. But through this process, through formation, their role is not going to be to make business decisions for the company, because the company really shouldn't be up and doing that much business yet. Right now, their role is going to be to serve as the responsible parties for the formation. Okay, more on directors later. We're going to talk about them and the work that they do, and how they function and operate, the management power of a corporation. But we're not there yet. So, we got through step one. All right, articles of incorporation, we know what we need. We need name, we need shares, we need a registered agent, and we need the name of the incorporators or directors. Okay? Step two. Step two is an organizational meeting. All right. Now, there's a lot of things that go on at this organizational meeting after you've filed your articles of incorporation that are nice, but they're not the important part. All right? For example, you're going to authorize those shares of stock. In step one, you're going to tell the state how many shares are authorized. In step two, you're actually going to authorize them. So now you've told them how many you're going to authorize, and now you're actually going to do it. So you have your shareholders, and they have their ownership, all right, when you get together for the organizational meeting. Now, we'll come back to that later as well. If the corporation is going to have officers, and we'll talk about officers and the role that they play a little bit later as well when we talk about the management power that's vested in directors, and we'll also talk about officers. But if you know you're going to have officers, an organizational meeting would be the place to hire them so that they're there right off the bat. But again, that may not even be applicable at this point, especially in a smaller corporation. The directors may be perfectly capable of handling the corporation without needing to hire officers. We'll talk more about the relationship between directors and officers a little bit later. You adopt a corporate seal, and the story I love to tell when I cover this is I was teaching this class at another school, and I got to this part of corporations, and I said, organizational meeting, a lot of times corporations will adopt a corporate seal. And a girl in the front row said, "Really?" And I said, "Yeah. Why?" And she said, "That seems kind of silly." And I said, "Why? You need to have a seal." And she said, why do they need to have a seal? I said, you know, they put it on all their official documents. It's an official symbol of the company. And she literally thought I meant the animal, a seal, like from SeaWorld, like adopt a seal, and keep it and take care of it and stuff like that. And it was hilarious, because when I hear adopt a seal, I guess you could think of it that way, but that's not what we mean. We mean a corporate seal, a symbol, to that literally that, you know, on all official corporate documents, including shares of stock, is going to be there, so that you know it's something official from the corporation. Lastly, the fourth thing that happens at an organizational meeting, and this is the big one, this is the important thing, this is something that I really want to talk about, is adopting bylaws. Alright? Now, bylaws are a much more formal and detailed document than the Articles of Incorporation. As you can see by now, Articles of Incorporation ask for very superficial information about the corporation. They just want to know what's going on and what it's going to look like. So we can tell them that. Bylaws is not really the state's concern, although I believe you need to file your bylaws also with the state. But usually, it's only of concern to the people who are either a part of the corporation, who are interested in investing in the corporation by becoming a shareholder, or are interested in working for the corporation as an officer or going to work as a director. They are the rules that govern how the corporation is going to operate. Now, to give you an idea of what bylaws are like and some of the issues they cover, I was fortunate enough to find the bylaws for the Best Buy Corporation. And I was very surprised to find, because I've seen some bylaws that are hundreds and hundreds of pages long. Best Buy's bylaws are 8 pages long. That's it. And it's a very, very basic, simple discussion, explanation of how their corporation is going to run, who is going to be in charge, and who gets to make what decisions, and when, and how. I'm not going to ask you to read it cover to cover and, you know, commit it to memory or anything like that, but just to give you an idea of what I'm talking about, it's worth a glance. Again, reading it in depth is probably going to bore you to tears, but at the very least, take a look at the subject headings and the topics that their bylaws cover. It's pretty well representative. Just that some other companies go into much more depth, and so they take up a lot more pages. Some of the things they're going to cover: bylaws generally, not just Best Buy, but bylaws generally. Meetings, shareholder meetings, right? The law is going to require that shareholders have an annual meeting. Well, sometimes, and we'll talk about this when we get to why the shareholders meet and what they do at these meetings, sometimes you need to meet in between annual meetings. Sometimes it's important to get the shareholders together to make some kind of a decision that can't wait until the next annual meeting. Also will govern meetings of the board of directors. For example, issues like how many directors are there going to be? How many need to be present at a meeting in order for there to be a quorum? And a quorum, by the way, if you've ever served on like a board for your town or city, you know that a quorum is the number of people out of the full membership of the board that need to be present in order for the board to take some kind of action. So if you've got 12 board members, you know, your bylaws might say 7 need to be present in order for the board to take some kind of action. If only half of you are there, that's not enough people present to take any kind of an action. It'll also say what kind of votes are needed in order for the board to officially approve some action. So, you know, if you've got 9 members of the board of directors, the bylaws may say you need 5 or more to pass an action through the board of directors. You know, or, you know, it may say 5 or more except in matters having to deal with, you know, taking on additional, you know, debt or loans, in which case you need 6 or more, something like that. But that's one of the things that's going to govern the meetings. It's also going to talk about the operation and administration of the corporation. For example, one of the reasons that you may know by the time you get to the organizational meeting whether or not you want to hire officers is because your bylaws that you've been putting together in preparation for the organizational meeting may say we are going to hire officers. So to handle the operation and administration of the corporation. So you may know that right off the bat, that we're going to have to hire some officers to do this. If not, it's going to set out here exactly in what other way, what other fashion the corporation is going to be run. What else have we got in here? Oh yeah, powers, rights, and responsibilities. You know, if we've got, do we have a board of directors that has a chairperson, a vice chairperson? Do we have board of directors that are broken down into subcommittees? What are the powers, rights, and responsibilities of each individual director? What are the powers, rights, and responsibilities of how work's going to get done to make decisions? Same thing with officers. What are their titles going to be? What are their rights and responsibilities? I don't believe Best Buy does this, but a lot of bylaws will kind of, when you're talking about officers, will kind of sound like job descriptions. And say, oh, we're going to have a CEO, and the CEO is going to do, you know, X, Y, and Z. And he's going to have the power to do X, Y, and Z without the board of directors. But when it comes to A, B, and C, he must get the board of directors' approval, and that sort of thing. So take a look at Best Buy. Just kind of peruse it to give you an idea of some of the decisions that they made when they sat down to put together their bylaws. And I believe I'm going to wait to do this. I'll probably actually do this sometime next week, theoretically, after you've all had a chance to get through the reading on corporations and also listen to this whole presentation here. But be on the lookout on Blackboard for a message board thread about Best Buy's bylaws, and we can kind of get into a discussion. There's some interesting questions in there, some interesting decisions that they made, and I just want to take advantage of it because it's a good example of bylaws and it's relatively short, so I feel like I'm not, you know, pounding you to death with an enormous document to plow through. Okay, so we made it through